Shenita. I am Shenita Connolly, and I would like to thank you all for joining us this evening for this very important and necessary conversation. Many of you all know that I have been on this journey to make sure that people are informed and equipped to get their affairs in order. At the end of this month, of course, we celebrate Women's History. And I am not only interested in what's best for women, but for all individuals out here. But specifically tonight, I just am just really just feel like I need to focus on women because it's Women's History Month. We have two amazing professional women that will be a part of this conversation tonight. We have many family members who are viewing this show tonight that are women. We have men who have wives, who have mothers, who have sisters, who have daughters, who I want to make sure that they are thinking about their loved ones in this manner. I know that this is not a popular conversation to talk about what happens when I die or what happens when I'm ill and can no longer navigate through life as I usually do. So we are going to have a candid conversation with an attorney, with a funeral home director, with a financial advisor, with an insurance agent, and with a retired Air Force serviceman who has done the work to get his affairs in order and will show us and tell us how to store them once we do just that. So without further delay, because I want this to be about you all and nothing more about me, so I am going to invite my guest in. As always, ladies first, because we are celebrating Women's History Month to the end of the month. So let me introduce you all to these amazing women. Also, with that being said, please share this broadcast because I truly believe sharing is caring. If you care, please share because I'm sure there are going to be some nuggets that are going to be dropped tonight that you need, someone that you know might need. So please share this broadcast so that we can make sure that people are well informed. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce you to attorney Sonia Bailey. Good evening,
Hello.
Attorney Bailey.
Hi, how are you?
I am well. How are you?
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And next, we have Miss Dana Lemon with W.D. Lemon and Sons Funeral Home out of McDonough, Georgia, as well as Morrow, Georgia. Good evening and welcome again.
Myself off mute so that I can say good evening.
Good evening.
I'm so excited to be here, Shenita. Thank you so much for doing this and continuing to educate and inform not just women, but the entire community. It's so important.
Yes, I am so delighted to have you ladies here with me tonight because we, as you know, we're still celebrating Women's History Month and you all are continuing to make history and leaving legacy for your family and setting the stage for so many other families as well. So I appreciate you all and I salute you today and always.
And Sonia and I still didn't coordinate these colors, but
We did.
I saw that. I was like, okay, it's powerful and it looks great on both of you.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. So next we're going to bring in Mr. Floyd Gant, financial advisor with Edward Jones in Fayetteville, Georgia. Good evening, Mr. Gant.
Good evening, ladies. I am privileged to be in front of such beautiful ladies and to again be on your show. Again, you do such a great job for the community, Shenita, and you've brought me on several times, and I've actually have people come from your show into my office. So I'm happy to be here again. And any insight that I can provide for anyone, I believe the Lord has blessed me and want to continue to bless others. So I want to share the information today with you all.
Yes, I'm delighted. And that's what it's all about, Floyd. It's about getting the information out there and people making a decision to move to the next level and come to sit down and talk with you and get their plans together.
And quickly, that's just giving my opinion. And I tell people, you know how much your opinion costs? $0. All right.
Zero.
So let's don't be afraid to receive an opinion and understand how everything works. How does your 401k works? How does a financial planner works, and what can it provide for you? And how much does it cost? Right. And when you know those things, you can make great decisions. So again, thank you.
Yes, I appreciate you. And next up, we have Mr. Cornell McBride Jr., and he is with Symmetry Financial Group, and we're going to focus on life insurance. Good evening, sir.
Hey, good evening. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Good evening. I feel like you, Floyd, surrounded by all these beautiful women on a Thursday night. Who needs a date night? All you got to do is be on Shenita's show once in a while. That's what I'm talking about. Good evening, everybody. And Shenita, you know what? Like Floyd said, we've been doing this for years, together. And it's really, not only is it necessary, it's the fact that you can bring the same people on, build this audience, expand the scale in which we're getting this information out. Mm-hmm. Because I was just writing a note. What I love about what this call does is it allows us to engage people, educate people, equip people, and empower people. Mm-hmm. Because people don't value things they don't understand. And the time that we spend on here absolutely gives us an opportunity to really change people's lives, even if it's just for catching the nuggets and the education that they're going to hear from our guests tonight. So thank you, Shenita, again for inviting me.
Yes. I love the passion that you have and everyone have in their respective areas. And last but certainly not least, we're going to bring in Mr. Charlie James, who is going to talk to us about what do we do once we have all our I's dotted, our T's crossed, we have some documents done. What do we do with those documents? So when the time arises, who can find them? Who knows where they are? Where are we going to store them? My father just passed. My mother just passed. Well, they did tell me they had a life insurance policy, but I don't know where it is. So we're going to talk about that so that we've done the work all the way to the end. So it makes it easy for those left behind to navigate through the next phase of their life of losing a loved one. So with that being said, ladies, I would like for you all to unmute and introduce yourselves. Be as generous about who you are as you like. I know a lot of times we're modest, but please share with the people who you are so they understand you better. Sonia, we're going to start with you.
All right. My name is Sonia Bailey. I have been practicing law in the city of Atlanta for the last 29 years. My office is located in the Southwest Atlanta area on Cascade Road. I do prepare wills. I prepare medical directives. I prepare power of attorneys. I do divorces, adoptions, name changes. I have a general practice. I think the one area of law that I just not my cup of tea is criminal law, but certainly if you have a need for one, I can find you one. I'm also a hearing officer for both the city of Atlanta and for the city of Marietta. And what a hearing officer does is when children are in trouble at school, if the school is going to suspend them for 10 days, they have a right to a hearing, and I conduct those hearings. So I have a broad practice, and I love practicing law.
Awesome. I love it. I hear the passion.
Yes.
Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction. Dana Lemon, please share who you are with the audience.
I am Dana Lemon, and as Shenita stated, I am a part of W.D. Lemon & Sons Funeral Home. And I like to tell folks that my mother and father had 7 children, and they kept having children until they got to number 7, me, the youngest of the bunch. And we all know what the number 7 means. So I said, folks, they kept going until they perfected it, and then they stopped. So they stopped with me. So I am the youngest of the 7 children my mother and father had, and all of us were involved in the business. We've been around since 1959, so this is our 29th year this year. No, yeah, 29. This is our 29th year this year. Next year is going to be a milestone year for us, and we're very excited about it. We have 2 locations. We have one here in Henry County in the city of McDonough, and we have one in Clayton County in the city of Marl. But we serve the entire crescent, Southern Crescent. We've been serving the Southern Crescent again since 1959, and we're very excited to be a part of this community. We're all very active in the community. Me and my siblings are, and I'm very active in the community, and we do lots to serve those in many different areas. But we're excited to be a part of this conversation this evening, and ready to serve the people of the Southern Crescent.
I love it. And you not only are active in the community where your businesses are, you're on another level with the state active as well. Is that correct?
So I represent the 13th Congressional District on the Georgia DOT board. And so I just recently got reelected. Our terms are 5-year terms. I was the first woman elected to serve on this board in 2003. I tell folks at the time I was 39 years old, and the average age of the board at that time was about 72. So not only did I bring in a different sex, but I brought in a little bit of youth to that board. And so I've been serving since then. I have about 5 counties that I represent in and around primarily Metro Atlanta. But we serve in a way that we make decisions about the entire state of Georgia with a budget of about $3 billion.
Wow, that's big. That's big. That's huge.
Yeah, it's a few zeros on that number.
So we appreciate all that you do. Next up, Floyd Gant. Would you share with the audience who you are and what you do?
Thank you, Dr. Connolly. I will tell you this. My background is mathematics and finance. I have an undergrad out of the great Fort Valley, and I attended Clark, Atlanta, and there was 2 careers for me. I worked in corporate America for over 7+ years in Hartford, Connecticut for Fortune 500 companies. Came back down to Georgia and worked at another Fortune 500 company before I started my own practice with Edward Jones. I've been practicing helping people within financial planning for over 15+ years. And I love it. While I was in Connecticut, I also received a master's of accounting and taxation degree. I don't do taxes for people, but I try to use my skill set to give you a well-rounded, holistic feeling of finance. So when you come to my office, we will not only talk about your plan, but we'll talk about how you can budget, how you can do certain things. And hopefully, I'm being straightforward with you. I will tell you how much you have during your retirement, and so you can see the entire picture. So it's important. In my office, I have 2 people that work for me, Natasha Brown and Kelly Ledeck. They basically can do and take care of all your financial needs, but you have any particular financial questions, I always say run it by me. If I can't find that answer, I'll find someone who can through these great contacts, such as people like yourself.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you, Floyd.
Thank you.
Money matters. You're very significant tonight, because if that money disappears, like what happened when my husband passed away, where are we?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we need to talk about the money. Let's talk about it. Cornell, would you please share with the audience who you are and what you do?
Good evening, everybody. Cornell McBride here out of Stockbridge, Georgia. I just moved. So I'm in Stockbridge, Georgia. I am a part of Symmetry Financial Group. I am a life insurance agent that has an absolute passion for educating people on how to use living insurance, life insurance, while they are alive. There are so many aspects of, as Floyd knows as well, of the financial services industry that people can use while they're alive. And I think overall, in general, when people think of life insurance, they think of something that they're going to pay for that someone else is going to benefit from. So there's this selfishness that by nature most people have. So what I'm focused on right now is really getting into our community, needs to needs, lunches and dinners and events to let people really hear how this tool called life insurance works, how long it's been around, and how they can use it right now to really not only stabilize their home economy, but they can create generational wealth.
Awesome. That's important. And all of you all, Cornell, you have a son. Floyd, you have beautiful princesses and a wife and just had a newborn baby. I want to mention that. Shout out to the dads who are really daddying. Yes. So we want to give you guys some
Kobe
love.
Bryant in the house. I have a bunch of girls now. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, Noah's right here stalking me.
Yes. So we appreciate that. So let's kind of talk about, getting your affairs in order. So when we think about, is your house in order? Of course, the first thing begins with ourselves, or should begin with ourselves, making sure that we have our stuff in order. And so back in 2015, when my husband had the heart attack, and I went to Warner Robins in October 2015 and took 2 friends with me, and we all 3 walked out of that place making sure that we did have our documents in place. I did not want to talk about this topic and not be able to say I handled my business as it relates to getting my affairs in order, making sure my daughters knew where the documents were and all of that. So we want everyone out there to ask themselves, is my house in order as it relates to whether you get ill or whether you die? Are your affairs in order? So let's talk about that. Sonia, give me your perspective on what you can offer, or what your thoughts are on getting your affairs in order, the importance of it.
All right. Now, everyone knows about the last will and testament. That's the document that everybody knows about. Not as many people are familiar with the medical directive. And in Georgia, when I first started practicing 29 years ago, it was a living will. That's what we called it. And I would tell people the last will and testament took care of things after you pass. The living will take care of things while you're still living. But the importance of that medical directive, that while you're in your right mind, while you're thinking, you can make those decisions, that when it comes a point in time that you can't talk, that you cannot make those decisions, who will make those decisions for you? If you have a spouse, maybe it's the spouse. If you have adult children, or if you're like me, I'm single, I don't have any children. So I had to put down who is going to make that decision if something happens to me. Not only that, you can also put in that medical directive, do you want to be cremated? Do you want to be buried? Do you want to do not resuscitate? Those are the things. And if you do have children, you can also put in there, who's going to be the guardian of your children? Because if something happened to you and the child's other parent at the same time, you need to be able to already think about this and have conversations with people. Now, that's the important part. Not only do you get to write it down in the medical directive, but I always tell clients, don't surprise people. If this is who you are choosing that's going to care for your children, if something happens to you, talk to them. Make sure that they actually want to do that. Make sure that the person who you assign to make those decisions for you wants to do it. For instance, as my father aged and he died in 2019, and I drafted his medical directive, and when he talked about, okay, there are 3 girls, I'm the baby. And he said, well, I'll put you on there to make my final decisions. I said, that's not a good idea, because you don't want to be hooked up on life support. I'm the baby girl. I'm going to hook you up and you will live long as me. So we need to rethink this, and you might need to choose somebody else to make that decision. But those are the conversations that you need to have. In terms of, and as our parents get older, we need to start talking about them, even about financial powers of attorneys. That there's simple things that as they age, my mother is 78 now. There's something she don't want to talk to Georgia Power if there's a problem on the bill. She doesn't even want to talk to her credit card company if there are issues. So we get those documents in order while they're able to sign a financial power of attorney that gives me the right to talk to Georgia Power, to talk to the credit card people, on her behalf. And I always tell people that when you're doing these documents and you're giving somebody that authority, make sure it's somebody that won't abuse it. And you have to realize that you can always revoke it, because if you find out they are abusing it, you can revoke it. And last but not least, that last will and testament. Some of the benefits of having a last will and testament is that if you die without one, the court might make your heirs post a bond. If you have a last will and testament, you can waive that requirement. The other thing is the court might want a list of all of your assets. If you have that last will and testament, you can waive that requirement. And last but not least, you can identify and you can be in control of who you want to leave your things to. And I tell people yet again, talk to people, because even if you have children, adult children, you think one child wants the house, they might not want it. And I always give people advice when they come to my office. We got 5 children. Think about if you want 5 people name on one house. Because, usually there's one that don't want to pay their share, or there's one that might want to live there. And you have to consider all of those things while you're living, so that when you pass, your children, your family, your friends even are not fighting and disagreeing about your stuff. So that's the importance of at least those 3 documents in preparing yourself and making sure that your stuff is in order, getting your life in order.
Yes. And I so appreciate you encouraging them to have the conversation.
Yes.
It's not morbid. Have the conversation, have dinner. You can have jokes about it, but at least have the conversation.
Yeah. And that is so important. And I think, different people handle it different ways. I know as the youngest, when my father first started aging, he wanted to have that conversation with my oldest sister because she was the oldest. She was uncomfortable doing it. But the first time he went in the office, I wasn't uncomfortable at all. I came in there and said, look, Daddy, you getting older, Mama getting older, but if something happens, I need to make sure that I know where stuff is. I need to make sure that stuff is ran. And if something happens to you, I need to make sure that Mother is taken care of. So you have to talk to people, find out what they're comfortable doing. And I tell people too that when they bring older citizens to my office, I'm going to have a conversation with nobody in the room but me and them, because we need to make sure it's truly what they want to do and not anybody else.
Mm-hmm. My brother-in-law said he had spoken with his previous boss before he retired from the fire department in Pensacola, Florida. And his boss said to him, when you handle your business, you run it from the grave.
Right. That is absolutely right.
So no one, has any questions. You are handling your business. You are not there, but you're still handling your business.
Yes, because under Georgia law, if you pass without a will, your estate goes to what we consider your heirs at law. So if you're married, your estate goes to your spouse. And if you have children, it also goes to your children. So with my father having a spouse and 3 children, that meant the house that him and my mom had worked for 50 something years, a part of that would go to me and my sisters. I don't need my mom's house. And we don't need to split a house up and put all of these names on a house. Let that house go, just in my personal situation. I'm not talking about everybody's, but let the person decide this is who we want the house to go to. Mm-hmm. And this is what we want to happen. Have those conversations.
Yeah. And I want to just add to this before I move on to Dana with funerals. If you have small children and you have a lump sum life insurance policy and there's no direction to that money, and they get this huge lump sum of money after you die and there's no direction, I want them to disperse $1,000 a month for the next 15 years or however you set it up. And they get this lump sum of money and they're not financially responsible, then that money is gone in no time. So if you take the time and, set up a trust or set up a system where I'm looking out for you for the rest of your life or until you pass on to a husband or a wife or whatever the case may be, so that you're not broke in a year or 6 months or 2 years.
Exactly.
That's important to plan it out. Okay. So Dana, same question. the importance of this funeral aspect of getting your affairs in order. I know you've seen tons of funerals and people, particularly during the COVID pandemic.
Right.
And so can you express the importance of this phase that you are focused on to the audience?
So, Shenita, let me start by saying it's 64 years, not 29 years. I can't add. So we've been around for 64 years.
64
And
years.
I like to tell people that the best thing my parents ever did for their 7 children was to plan their own funerals. We're in the business. So it's not like we wouldn't have known what to do for my parents when they passed, but my parents knew their children. 7 children. And of course, all 7 of us knew exactly what my mom and dad would want. And all 7 of us was the one that wanted to make the decision. They knew our personalities. They knew that left to our own measures, each of us would probably have a different opinion about what needed to happen. We'd seen over the years families having challenges because the parents didn't give them direction. The mother didn't, the father didn't, the husband didn't, a spouse didn't. And the people left behind to make those decisions didn't always have the same opinion about what that decision would be. It's simple, something as simple as, who do you want on your to preach your service, to do the eulogy? My father was very specific. He had a specific person, his best friend, who happens to be a minister. He wanted to provide the eulogy for him. My mom, not so specific. She just said, whoever the pastor of the church is at the time of my death. And she was cool with that. But my father was very specific. Mm-hmm. Something like cremation versus burial. I cannot tell y'all the number of times I've had families come in and arguing about whether a mother or father wanted to be buried or wanted to be cremated. It's a conversation that needs to be had. And as Sonia said, choose the right time to have that conversation. Again, you know your family members, you know your spouse, you know your children. I'm not a morning person. So I don't do well having serious conversations first thing in the morning. So my mother and my father would not have ever tried to have that conversation with me at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. My sister Dorothy, on the hand, wakes up with the chickens and the roosters. And so she is most alert and most aware at that time in the morning. You call her at 8 o'clock and you're going to get 8 p.m. and you're going to get nothing. You call her at 8 a.m. and she's alert, she's aware, and she's able to make decisions. And so you know your family. Choose that time that works best for those children. You may not be able to do it all at the same time. Mm-hmm. Food is also a great way to have this conversation, whether it's around the breakfast table, lunch table, dinner table, or just one afternoon after everybody's finished their day and you just say, y'all come by the house after you finish dinner at your house. Choose an environment at a time that is comfortable for those who you're going to be having the conversation with. And have the conversation.
That's the most important part.
Have the conversation. And the conversation might be as simple as, your mom and I met with the funeral director. These are our plans. Here's our copy. You keep your copy. All of you have a copy and you know now what we want. Or it might be, we would like to meet with the funeral director and we want one of you or both of you or all of you to go with us. Mm-hmm. Or it may be, your mom wants to be cremated. I want to be buried. Put her ashes wherever you bury me. Whatever that conversation is, go ahead and have that conversation, because in today's time, there's so many options out there about services, how you can have the services, the things that can occur during your services. And you don't want your children looking at each other and getting angry at each other because you can't agree from the basic cremation versus burial to all the other little details that you have to finalize.
That is so true, because it can be ugly.
Who to sing, all of that stuff. I've seen families, Shenita, argue about a flower that someone sent them, a peace lily that probably cost $30. And because we are emotional at the time of death, grief manifests itself in so many different ways.
Yes,
That
indeed.
something as simple as a flower can cause division within a family, so that sisters or brothers or siblings or whatever may not ever speak to each other again after this experience, because the grief manifested itself in that way, and that conversation or the anger manifests itself out, and they weren't able to deal with that situation. So as responsible adults, have the conversation, figure out the best time to have a conversation, and make sure that you're sharing with as many people as you think will be impacted by that decision, whether it's all your children or you may even include some of your grandchildren.
That's great advice. And I hope they're taking notes, because you guys are really dropping some nuggets to save confusion, to save heartaches and pain, because when there's division during this time, some people never recover.
Right. They're not able to come back together as a family and say, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that, I shouldn't have done that. And it's unfortunate that during that time, death creates a very hypersensitivity. All of us are extremely sensitive during that time. Like, as I said, grief manifests itself in so many different ways. And something that short of death would not have bothered you at all might send you to another level that, again, will not enable you to come back from that, whatever you say or whatever you do.
And how popular now is pre-burial planning?
It's very popular, especially during COVID. People started realizing, wait a minute, this could happen to all of us in a moment, in a breath. That's what COVID seemed like. It was like a moment. It was a breath, even though it was 3 years. This could happen to any of us. And so we've had many families coming back since then saying, I need to get this in order, because it caught us off guard. We had husbands and wives passing. We had children passing. And so many people were caught off guard. And I won't say they weren't prepared, but the struggle to get the information together, to find the documents that they needed, added to the grief that they were already experiencing, and the suddenness of losing a loved one due to a virus, a disease like what we had. So many people, once they realized, wait a minute, I got to deal with this, I got to handle this, I'm not sure that they actually really got a chance to grieve, because they were trying to take care of the business.
Absolutely. I experienced that, so I understand it. So thank you, Dana. So we're going to go back to you, Floyd. Money matters. We talked about that. And, what happens if there's one person who's the breadwinner and they're no longer living and their money is dependent upon them being alive? What is the game plan? Most people do. They sit and think about, what is the game plan to replace this income? What are those who are dependent on this income going to do? How can you assist them, Floyd, in determining what the game plan is, what they could do now to prepare for the inevitable?
Thank you, Shenita. I think it's important that you all talked about so many different particular subjects. When Sonia talked about the will, power of attorney, I'm talking about I call it the Georgia will, Sonia, right? If you pass away, if you don't have kids and you don't have a spouse, it goes down, right? It goes down to the kids. If you don't have any kids, it goes up to the parents. Your parents don't live, it goes sideways. And people don't know that Georgia has a will out there, and you may not want to go by that will. So that's important. And Danny, you talked about the funeral. When you look at particular parts, I always break it down to 4 ways of revenue. What I tell my clients, it's 4 ways of revenue. And you have to think about this, because people do pass. And have you had a financial plan? One thing that we're going to receive for the rest of our life is Social Security. We're going to receive that for the rest of our life. That's an immediate annuity that we put in. As long as you have 10 years, 40 particular, what do they call it? I can't think of what they call it, but you have 40 particular quarters, that particular Social Security will be available for you. It will be based upon your highest pay. You have a pension, but unfortunately, pensions have went away. Sometimes we think that our spouse, in the case I know yours personally, Shenita, You may think that somebody has a pension. That's immediate annuity, usually based on your 2 years of your highest pay, or your 3 years based on a certain service that you work for a particular institution, school, company, and they'll pay you a certain amount for the rest of your life. When that partner passes away, sometimes that goes away with them. It depends on what they selected within their little bubble when they're retired. Sometimes it may be a second marriage. It may go to the first wife and not yourself. Do you know that, right? That's the second part. The third part I call is other revenue, right? Have you all looked at things that you could be doing? Rental homes, other things as you get older. If you lose that partner, you're going to lose some revenue. How do you make up for that revenue? You have to think about. The last part is where I come in, and that's investments. Hopefully, you have set a plan out for investments, and that starts with your 401k plan at work. You have to be doing your match, MATCH, that's your free money. But I tell clients, do more than your match. At least do 10% of your salary. The Lord says give 10% in the church. You should give 10% to yourself. Build your investments. You can live off those investments. That adds up to one piece of the pie. I know Cornell's going to talk about it. In that particular investments, life insurance. When someone leaves this earth, and you said, Shenita, if they didn't have a pension, let's go back to earlier, one of the revenue sources, if they didn't have a pension, did they have life insurance to back that up? You got to have one or the other, because you're losing a loved one and you're losing a particular revenue stream. You have to pay for the house. You have to do certain things. So there's insurance on top of a house you can have, but you can have typical life insurance. That falls into what Dana talking about as far as burial, right? They can use that for burial. And sometimes people have burial policies, but have life insurance. You have to think about these things as you move forward. That's one of the pieces. And then a final piece I usually go with people is long-term care. How do you provide for yourself when that partner's not there? We don't think about it, but ladies, if we live longer than men, I know you may have wonderful kids in your life, and I know each of you all have made great nephew and nieces, but they have their own life. How do you provide for them? Medicare only does so much. They're only going to come so many times during the week. Can you afford a person coming in every day watching over you, or do you have that person? It's just a thought. But if you have an insurance called long-term care, they can provide for you. So when you look at everything, it's not as simple as looking at one thing, because so many things fall into place. But what I just gave you was from beginning to the end of things you need to think about. And you know, before they leave my office, I ask them, do they have a will and power of attorney? What Sonya talking about the basis, and she did a great job of it. All of those are wrapped into one, and you need to know all those things, unfortunately, because you're losing another revenue source, and it can be detrimental not only to you emotionally, but also financially as you move forward.
Yes, and like you said, someone said it earlier, you can't grieve because you're in this survival mode because you don't know what to do. What am I going to do here? So if you meet with someone like Floyd, someone like Sonia, someone like Dana, and you're preparing for the inevitable, because we all know we're going to die. We just don't know when. We all know that we could possibly get ill to the point where we need long-term care. We just don't know, but we do need to prepare for it. So with that being said, thank you, Floyd.
And Shenita, I bring some other point too. When they come to the office, it's important because you may not know what your partner has. Unfortunately, and I don't do a great job. I'm getting 10 years of service, people, and I don't want to press people too much, but I'm learning to press. Unfortunately, a male may pass away, or a woman, usually us men, unfortunately.
Yes.
And we have accounts that we have not shared with our spouse.
Hello.
Whether it's the secret Batman account that we have on the side, or whatever it may be, that account, if you don't share, please have a POD or a TOD on that account. So transfer on death or payable on death, basically saying if you pass away, this account is not dormant because you had this secret account, and I'm not trying to throw men under the bus or anything like that. please have somebody other name on it if you pass away, because you can pass away because things happen in life, and unfortunately. So I had to throw that part because so many people come into office and we still don't know what each other have. And it's basically, if you don't tell the partner, make sure something's in place because it could transfer to them.
Yes, you better say that and say it loud and clear, because a lot of people and they don't even think about that. Like, I don't want anybody to know I have this money flowing. But you need to list somebody, if you're gonna keep it a secret, list somebody on that account. So thank you for bringing that up, because I definitely was planning to. So thank you.
Oh boy, thank you.
Cornell. So with the life insurance, we kind of piggybacked off of why all of these areas are important for us to navigate through and make sure that we have them in place. So kind of talk a little bit more about the importance of the life insurance to the family or to the loved ones.
Okay, excellent. And I'm so glad that Floyd brought that up about the TOD and the POD, because Shenita brought it up to me about 2 years ago at an event that we were doing together. And I hadn't even been in the industry for 7 years. I had never heard it. So the following week, I went to the bank and put my ex-wife on it. Somebody got to be on it. The bank don't need the money.
Right.
Somebody got to get it. And when it comes to this, you all think about this. If the beneficiaries on your life insurance policy don't know they're the beneficiaries, the insurance companies are not going to go try to find them. They're not going to do it. So here's something I want to talk about. I want y'all to think about this, and I'm going to share with you the marketing behind it. Think about this. All right. Black men have a 70% higher risk of heart failure compared to white men. 70%. Okay. Black women have a 50% higher risk of heart failure compared to white women. Black adults are more than twice as likely as white adults to be hospitalized for heart failure. So think about this. We're high risk, right? Mm-hmm. We're high risk at heart failure. We're high risk at diabetes. We're high risk for stroke. We're high risk for cancer. So if I'm owning an insurance company and I want to minimize my risk, what community do you think I'm going to market to the least?
Hello.
Now, you may have Jake from State Farm might be black, but outside of that, State Farm don't really do a lot of life insurance for us anyway, right? There's a lot of independent companies out there. But think about that. So, and I say that because that means that insurance companies aren't investing a lot of money into the education for people of color to get life insurance for things other than a death benefit. So what happens is, here's another statistic I want to share with you all. Black families have the highest rate of life insurance ownership among all racial groups at 50%, 56%, compared to 52% for the total of of the rest of the U.S. adult population. Here's the problem. We own the most, but we have the least amount in death benefit. So think about that. And here's the problem. Because you've got salesmen going into our community who could sell us our parents and grandparents a policy for 10 or 15 cents a week, the debit man, for a $200 or $300 policy when they could have sold us a policy that would have paid us $1,000 or $2,000. So yeah, we're insured, but we don't have the right insurance. Yeah, we're insured, but we could have had more insurance for the same amount of money. Hey, we're insured. So now what happens is we're putting the most amount of money we can into the least amount of death benefit. So now we have an issue with the transfer of generational wealth, because the only money we really got, our parents, our grandparents, was only enough to pay for the funeral. So if and I'll say this, and Floyd knows this fact, the average age of an insurance agent right now in 2023 is 56 years old, and it's a white man. So think about this. So you have insurance companies run by predominantly white men going into communities that they know are high risk, selling them the least amount of life insurance for the most amount of money. How are you going to beat that?
Mm-hmm.
So now that we're starting to see the little videos on TikTok about be your own bank and all this kind of stuff, it doesn't matter if people don't know what to do and they're not educated when it comes to getting the money. We've said that word financially responsible a lot in this conversation, because what do we know about the average person that wins the lottery? They broke in 5 to 6 years. Look at how many athletes get referred to the league's new financial advisor. What do you think he looks like? Now they broke 5 to 7 years. So what we have to focus on as a community is reaching out to Miss Dana. Go to the funeral home. Have a conversation with her, regardless of how you feel. Find out what it really costs to have a funeral. And like Miss Sonia was saying, look, I was at a funeral and people started fighting. Like this stuff, money does some things, because people are at this highest peak of vulnerability when it comes to grief. And then they have the most stress they have. I ain't got no money, and we gotta bury somebody. So now you're at this high level up here, and then you have the high stress over here. So how do we solve these problems with life insurance? We make sure that the whole family's house is in order. You got to have the will. You got to have the up-to-date power of attorney. The beneficiaries got to know their beneficiaries. You got to know, hey, if we're going to go to this funeral home, am I going to get cremated, or do I want a funeral? Do I want a DNR? See, I'm my mom's power of attorney, and I didn't know almost any of this stuff until Shenita and I started doing events. Now I won't let her get rid of me. It could be 6 of us on this call and Noah, and I'd be on this call every time she asks. Because to me, there's going to be people on here that are going to do nothing. They're going to do absolutely nothing. They're going to be so hyped about what they're hearing right now, and they will do nothing. So I'm going to say this to the person. It's like, oh, you know what? I need to call Floyd. I need to call Cornell. Don't call Floyd asking that man for no quote. You want a quote? Go to Google, type in, I need a quote. Get yourself a quote. But let me tell you how much money a life insurance company pays for a quote. Don't worry, I'll wait. 0. Quotes don't pay. So if you're going to go sit with a financial professional like Floyd, or you want to sit with a professional like me, you got to be prepared to take action. We know as adults, you know what life insurance is. You know what it's for. What you need another quote for. This ain't a quoting business. Something's going to happen to you, and it could be something that doesn't take you out, but now you're stuck in this gray area. You ain't dead. There's no check. Like Floyd was saying about disability income. What if you can't work? I was in a car accident and couldn't work for 3 months. Shenita came to see me at my house. Probably some food too. Well, off the chain. But what I couldn't go. But fortunately, I have a business that I work from home, and my business kept working. But what about people that can't work? What if I needed my voice and I can't talk? You gotta think about living benefits. You gotta think about critical care. You gotta think about disability insurance. Insurance is gonna be the thing, whether you like it or not, that's gonna either set you up to win or it's gonna set you up to fail.
Absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely. Period. So thank you for allowing me to share, Shenita.
Yes. So we know that it is important to meet with the attorney to make sure that you have all the documentation squared away. We know that it's equally as important to meet with the funeral director to even discuss pre-planning, what the options are out there, what's the cost look like, so that we can be prepared. We know that it is important for you to sit down with the financial advisor to talk about, here's our income, here's our age, what do we need to do now to prepare for this age down the road, or when I die, or if I'm ill. We need to know. We need to know about the options for life insurance, whether it's term, whole life, living benefits, without living benefits, what's left for my families when I die. How do we direct that money? All of that is important in getting your house in order. After we've done all of that, and someone said, if nobody knows this information, it means nothing. How do we store this? Where do we put it? What do we do with it so that our family members can find it and know what to do with it once they do find it? So
Shenita, before you go to Charlie, let me make
Yes.
this one little comment.
Yes.
So on Tuesday, we received a phone call here at the funeral home. I won't say the name, but so-and-so and so-and-so called, an insurance company called, for a family that passed in 2017. There's still benefits out there that someone in that family is entitled to. So someone in that company is at least trying to do the right thing. But Cornell, you know, and Floyd, you know, most of the time, they just keep that money. They're not going to try to find out who the beneficiary is, and they're not going to make sure the family gets it. But we're talking 2017. Someone could have benefited, I'm sure, from the funds that were entitled to this family. So they at least call the funeral home and they say, can y'all help us find somebody because they're entitled to some benefits. Again, the family, nobody had a conversation. Nobody had a conversation. So they did not know and didn't follow up to make sure that they got the benefits that someone has been paying for them to have.
Yes. And that's to be commended. That's to be commended because it's rare that happens.
Very rare.
Yes. So we appreciate that. So as Dana said, next up is Charlie James. And Charlie is going to talk about what to do with those documents once you have your affairs in order. So Charlie, you didn't get a chance to introduce yourself because you were having some technical difficulties. But if you would introduce yourself and then share with them how important that is to put that information somewhere so that people know where it is and they can retrieve it.
Again, good evening, everybody. I am Charlie James, and in introducing myself, I am a 30-year veteran of the Air Force, but I want you to sort of put that to a side. I'm also a retired teacher. I taught in Clayton County for 13 years, but I want you to put that aside. And you may be asking me now, why do I want you to put those things aside? Because the things that I'm going to talk about is for any and everybody. It does not matter if you are not a professional or whatever it is, that you just have to take some time to do some of the things that I might be talking about. First of all, I would say gather your important papers. If you're married, gather your papers, your wife's papers, your children's papers, and bring them all together. And in doing that, come up with a system. Now, I came up with a system of binders. I simply put my important papers in several binders. And things like my will, Darcy's will, our living will, and our advanced medical directive. All of that is in a binder. Then our birth certificates, our marriage certificates. And I also mention this every time, is that being in the military, if you have a DD Form 214, you would be surprised as the number of spouses, women's spouses, who have no idea about the DD Form 214 and the things that that you can do as far as being a veteran of the military. Because burial in a national cemetery, you need a DD Form 214. And sometimes, instead of maybe having a GoFundMe, is that if a person has been a veteran, you can save a lot of money by being buried in a military or national cemetery. But basically, I just want you to know that you don't have to take this same approach. You can do it any way that you want to, but just to make sure that you have all of your information together. And it does no good if you do not share it with your spouse. And if it's just you and your spouse, what we do, what my wife and I do, we have an executor of our will. We have shared everything that we have in our binders with our executor. We keep these in a locked safe. Not only do we have a key, but our executor has a key to to our safe. So all of our important information, and in fact, things that you may not even think about. How many passwords do you have? We have all of our passwords listed, and they are also in the locker. Everything, every paper that you think is important, bring them together. And in fact, too, my wife and I use this on a yearly basis because at the beginning of the year, for all our financial information and everything, we go through this and update because things need to be updated when they change. So that's one of the reasons I'm saying forget that I was a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. Forget that I was a teacher because you don't have to have all those credentials to do this. All you have to do is take some time and effort and put it together. But the key thing is to make sure you are communicating, communicating. Back to
That's
you.
I couldn't have said it any better, Charlie. You just nailed that. You just nailed it. Once you got it together, and we're going to come back to Attorney Bailey because I know there's some closing words that you would like to share with the audience as we prepare to transition. I want you to publicly give them your information, although it's scrolling at the bottom. I want you to say where it is how they can reach you, and any closing nuggets that you want to share. I want you to go ahead and do that.
All right. My telephone number is area code 404-763-8988. My office is located on Cascade Road at 3915 Cascade Road. I'm going to piggyback on what somebody brought up with that payable on death account. One of the importance of having at least one account payable on death is because most of the time when somebody passed, their relatives will tell the bank, my dad, my spouse, my child, whoever passed, and the bank will immediately freeze that account. And the only way you have access to that money is to probate that estate and get those letters of administration before you can have access to the account. And that might take some time and it costs money. The benefit of having that payable on death is that all you need is that death certificate. And for some people who need that money, that was one of the great things that my father did, had my mom listed on his account. So when he passed unexpectedly, there was not one bill that didn't get paid because we still had access to that money. It didn't go through probate, didn't go through his estate. Creditors couldn't get to it. It went straight to mom. And so we just have to do a better job of getting all of our finances and our records and all of our things. Make sure that your death is not a heavy burden. It's going to be a burden that's going to be bad on your loved ones, but don't compound it by not having things in order and making people struggle and GoFundMe and cake sales or whatever people have to do to make sure that your final resting place is appropriate. Just get your stuff in order. Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Connolly, for having me on here. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of all of this expertise on here. And thank you for sharing and for caring about people enough that you would have this type of program. Thank you.
Yes, you are so welcome. And I wanted to say one more thing about people and handling their business. if you're on the job and you have a life insurance policy on the job or outside of the job, and it was your first wife and you got married again, please take the time and go to HR and change the name of the beneficiary.
Mm-hmm.
We saw so many cases particularly during COVID, where somebody forgot to change the name of the beneficiary and they passed away, and it was the old wife, and you got a new wife who has no benefits to bury her husband, and there's friction between the two women, and it's just a mess.
Yes.
So please go to HR and talk to HR and make sure your stuff is squared away on those jobs. Thank you, Attorney Bailey.
Thank you.
Dana?
So Dana Lemon, we're located at 300 Griffin Street in McDonough, WD Lemon & Sons Funeral Home, 770-957-4337. And Shenita, again, thank you so much. When Charlie talked about getting your documents together, I wanted to shout. So many veterans, folks, do not get the benefits that they're entitled to because the family has no idea where that DD 214 is located. And it takes a little while these days for the VA to sometimes to find that. And sometimes the family wants to go ahead and have the service before they can find the DD 214. You're missing out on many, many benefits because you cannot provide that document. And the VA is not going to act if you can't prove, even though you have proof, they're not going to act. And the same thing, like you said, Shenita, for things like beneficiaries. I cannot tell y'all the number of families that have come through our office where the beneficiary has either changed or died. And you want a complicated estate, let your beneficiary have passed. And your family is sitting there looking at you like, my dad died, but my mom was a beneficiary and she died, 7 years ago, 12 years ago. Again, just like was stated, it compounds the grief that you're already facing. And I said this before, have the conversations about burial and cremation. Cremation is becoming popular, but some people still don't believe in it. But some people want that. And if you don't have conversations with your family about it, they're not going to think about it at the time of death. They're going to do what's traditionally done, especially within the Black community. Have those conversations, sit down, show them the documents, tell them where the documents are, and make sure that they know. And finally, talk to your family about who you are and who your family is. One of the things that the funeral home does is provide the information for the death certificate from the family. I cannot tell y'all the number of people who don't know their relatives. Just today, we typed up a death certificate and the father's name for the deceased is left unknown, simply because the child does not know their grandfather's name. The grandfather may have passed many years before the child was born, but now, he has a mother and the child does not know their grandfather's name. So on the death certificate, it's going to say unknown, which is really kind of sad that we don't have the information we need to complete basic documents like death certificates. And we all know that whenever we don't complete these documents, it's impossible to do family trees and things like that because information is not out there. Mm-hmm. So again, Shenita, thank you so much. This has been a very good conversation. I've learned some stuff tonight as well. So look forward to doing this again soon.
Yes, in person.
I know, right?
We're going to do it in person. Yes, so you are so welcome, Dana. And Floyd, I know, you have some final words that you want to share with everyone. Please do so before we get to Erica's situation, and if anyone wants to chime in. But we're going to go with you, Floyd. I think you might be mute, Floyd. For some reason, we can't hear you.
And it's probably real interesting what he's saying.
Right. It is. We're going to come back to you, Floyd. We're going to hit Cornell. We're going to come back to you. Closing words, closing nuggets, Cornell?
Join us next time on Life with Shenita. This is, I think I'm really just so grateful, Shenita, not only being a friend, client, and like my big sister. I appreciate each and every one of you all for taking your time tonight, for the prep before the show, rearranging your schedules to be here, because it's going to take an army of us to really make a difference. Like Floyd said, if you get one person to reach out to you from this show, that's a huge deal. One person reaches out to Sonya, one person reaches out to Charles, one person reaches out to Floyd or Miss Dana or me. I'm like, that's a family protected. That's a family educated. And it goes beyond that particular person, because if we send somebody to Floyd's not just setting that person up for success. They're setting that person up so that they can set their family up for success. And that right there is what we have to look at. It's not about this is like a small group at church. Jesus had a small group. Started out with 2, got to 12. Now we know there was more than 12, but guess what? Just like Shenita got her core groupie on this show, Jesus was like, hey, let's get them fish and let's roll out.
Let's feed the people.
Let's feed the people. Like you said, feed a man a fish, feed them for a day, teach them how to fish, feed them for a lifetime. So the information here, I don't want anybody to underestimate, the stuff that you're hearing here. And I hope that everybody that's on the call, Erica and the other young ladies that were commenting, write these people's names down. Write the phone numbers down, because you don't want to get caught off guard and something happened. It could be a year from now, 5 years from now. Then you trying to go to Google, figure something. I don't even know who to go to get. Did she say a power of PLT or what? What TLC? She said TLC, didn't she? Somebody said get that TLC. You at the bank talking about I need a TLC form for my mom's account. It is important that you write down this information that people are sharing, because it is a game changer. It doesn't matter if it's $10,000 in an account, if it's $100,000 in a life insurance, if it's money that somebody had in a 401k or a pension at a company that they're no longer with, and Floyd's going to show them how to roll it over and to save money on taxes, because there's 2 things that we know are definite: death and taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what we need to be trying to save? We want to be here as long as we can, and we want to save as much as taxes as we can. And that's the great thing about life insurance. If something happens to me, my ex-wife and my son get a check tax-free. Y'all understand? I ain't talking about like the check you get from your job, and you got Social Security, Medicare, federal, state. You're like, dang, they got me for 60%. We're talking about somebody gets a check from a policy they didn't even put a dime in. Where else can you become an instant millionaire? Where can you instantly inherit something that can change your family's life for forever? Mm-hmm. So everybody, hey, take this thing seriously. Everybody want to take money seriously? Take keeping your money seriously. Take saving your money seriously. Take passing your money on to your heirs seriously. Passing it on to your church. And I'll end with this. That young man at the end, man, I got some spiral notebooks, but I gotta go redo it. I gotta go redo some things.
Yes.
I gotta go redo some things, because he was dropping nuggets.
The colonel brought it.
Man, come on. Yes, sir.
So with that being said, thank you so much, Cornell, as always. And we're gonna let Colonel James close us out. And then we're going to come back with Erica's situation. And I want, if you guys can chime in on that. But Colonel James, any closing words? Any more nuggets?
Just something that I said earlier is it doesn't take you to be a rocket scientist to do this. And you don't have to do it like I did it. You come up with a way that is good for you. But the important thing is, as everybody is saying, is when someone passes, we go through all kinds of emotions and things. I call this what I am doing with my wife. This is showing her love and her showing me love because, and I know some people don't like to talk about, well, we don't want to talk about dying and this and that and what, but this is, okay, look at it this way. Let's talk about love. Because in doing this, if we do it right and well, is that, yes, the person, we're going to grieve when the person is gone. But Doris and I, my wife, have a friend, and her husband passed. And in talking to her, she was saying, yes, I miss him and everything she said. But because he had everything in order, she said, it made it so easy for me when I had to take care of everything. And so, again, just do it. And if you, Shenita, are you going to help us to share our information? Like if people want to email me, my email address is ladydoris@bellsouth.net. I can talk to you about things that I have in my binder and things that you might want to consider. So I'm open to anyone contacting me.
Awesome. And Charlie, I just want to thank you because you've dealt with the prostate cancer diagnosis as well as breast cancer diagnosis, and you recovered from both of those. I call you, recovered from them, but you had things in order just in case it went south.
Yes.
Because it very well could have.
And they could have. And also, again, I'm 75, and as you said, 2 bouts of cancer, and so we never know what's going to happen. But on that note, though, too, is doesn't matter if you are 20, 21, 22, if you are married or you have children, you need to be doing the same thing to get your paperwork and things in order.
Absolutely. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We're going to see if we can hear Floyd this time. We still can't hear you. Is it a button on your computer, maybe? No? Well, we know that, of course, Floyd is available. His information is here. His office number is 770-461-2991. Email address is floyd.gant@edwardjones.com. He's located in Fayetteville, Florida. Please reach out to him. Please reach out to Cornell, reach out to Dana, reach out to Attorney Bailey, reach out to Colonel James, reach out to them according to your needs. Have the conversation with them and then have the conversation with your family. But Erica had a situation. She says, I had to close my mom's account, and now after she passed, and now she's getting checks she can't cash. And she's praying that, she can eventually get them cashed. I'm not sure what that, how to handle that or how to even address that. But that's a situation that we want to prevent.
So Shenita, and maybe Attorney Bailey may be the better one to talk about this, but it sounds like she's got checks that are made payable to her mom.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody's not been appointed administrator or executor of the estate, if they're appointed either of those, they can cash those checks. But
Yeah.
it sounds like somebody's not been probating the estate, but maybe Attorney Bailey.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. She did, and I need to have more information.
Right.
How long ago was an estate open? How much is it? So there are a lot more information that I need. But generally, in general terms, you would need to probate the estate, get the letters of administration. You get a federal identification number, take it to the bank, open up an estate account. And then you can deposit those checks into that estate account and withdraw the money. But I would need a lot more information to determine, did she open an estate and already close it? Is that the problem? So if she just called me at the office, and I'm going to be on trial tomorrow, so she call me next week.
Next week. Okay. All right. So Erica, please contact Attorney Bailey, and she might be able to assist you in that way. But again, I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you for your time, for your knowledge, for your information, just for your willingness to educate, inspire, empower the people of God. Because, you know, my day was a perfect day when my husband had his heart attack on June 30th, 2015. It was a perfect day. So as someone said earlier, things can change in an instant. Not a minute, an instant. Laid down to a heart attack and never recovered. So we want to be proactive in this matter. We want to make sure we are dotting our I's and crossing our T's. We were too busy doing life. And I say this as often as I can to people, particularly busy people. Busy people need to stop and handle their business. Make sure that they're thinking about the inevitable, thinking about if you get sick. Don't leave your family in a crisis beyond the loss, beyond the tragedy. A crisis could happen when we don't have all of our affairs in order. Take the time, pause. I encourage you, pause, go to the bank and identify someone to have those funds paid to upon death. Get the power of attorney, talk about the advanced medical directive, talk about your funeral desires, check and see if you have enough money. What's the game plan for your retirement, for your money loss? Get the life insurance, put the documents together so people know where they are, what to do when the time arises. So we just want to say thank you to you all for watching. Thank you all for sharing the information, meaning sharing the post. We thank you again to my panelists and wish you all nothing but the best. And to the ladies on the panel and off the panel, whoop, whoop, it's Women's History Month, and we want to salute every woman out there today and always. And to the men, you guys rock. So thank you. To our audience, stay tuned to the next episode of Life with Shenita. We have gone from a weekly episode to a bi-monthly episode. So please stay tuned to the announcements for the new dates for the month of April. Until then, stay blessed, stay encouraged. Remember, I love you, but God loves you most. He loves you best. And you guys get your affairs in order. Thank you, audience.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Hold tight, my panelists. Hold tight.